Hello and welcome to another episode of TopTenz. I am your interim host for this episode, Karl Smallwood, reporting here from the Shatterdome, aka my bedroom, and today we're talking about 10 insanely weird and cool plants. I really like plants. I do like plants. I do not have a green thumb. Every plant I have tried to grow has died. They don't love me, but I love them. Despite humanity's best efforts, the Earth is still home to plenty of bizarre, otherworldly flora and fauna, and you're probably aware of at least some of them because learning about cool plants is awesome, and yeah, it's something I do in my free time. However, if you'll indulge us, we'd like to tell you about 10 of the weirdest and coolest plants out there, starting with number 10, the tree tumbo. Commonly known as, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, the Welwitschia, or more simply the tree tumbo or entumbo plant, which I'll be using from this point onwards because it's easy to pronounce and far more fun to say. This peculiar and distinctive plant is native to the Namib Desert in Namibia and Angola. Noted for its unusual appearance and remarkable longevity, the tree tumbo is often considered to be a living fossil, with the plant's origins stemming all the way back to the Jurassic period. No, I'm not apologising for that pun. Now, the most striking feature of the entumbo are undoubtedly its leaves, and I should note that the S in leaves is doing some remarkably heavy lifting here because the plant literally only has, count them, 2 leaves, and it will never grow anymore. Though it's worth noting that mature examples of the plant can appear to have more, as they are often tattered and split into numerous ribbon-like segments due to centuries of exposure to wind and weathering. Yes, I said centuries, because in addition to only ever growing 2 leaves, like ever, the 2 leaves it grows as a sapling with the 2 leaves it has for the entirety of its life, the plant can live for centuries, if not millennia, with some examples being in excess of 2,000 years old, during which time it will literally just inch along the ground, surviving pretty much anything the environment can throw at it. Hell, sometimes animals will walk up and gnaw on this thing's leaves all the way down to the nub, and it will just wait a century for the animal to die and grow them back out again. Because that's the secret, folks. Entumbo always win. Number 9, the corpse flower. The corpse flower is an enormous, smelly and notorious plant that can be found in the rainforest of Sumatra. One of the most remarkable features of the corpse flower is its inflorescence, which is just the fancy botanical word for a bunch of flowers that grow from a plant stem, which can reach heights of over 10 feet or 3 meters. Or at least it would be, if not for the fact this thing notoriously gives off a foul, pungent odor, frequently compared to that of rotting flesh when flowering, hence the moniker, the corpse flower. Even in its native Indonesia, this thing is locally known as the bunga bangkai, literally the cadaver flower, which probably begs the question for a lot of people out there, what is the evolutionary advantage of smelling like a corpse that has pooed itself? Well, unlike the flowers that are pollinated by fuzzy little bees or dainty long-legged butterflies, the corpse flower is pollinated by carrion beetles and flies, which, as you might expect, are all about the smell of a week-old corpse. So that's what the plant has evolved to smell like. Hell, even the massive, easily identifiable inflorescence for which the plant is known exists only to generate a thick, choking, miasmic heat to trick these beasties and creepy crawlies into mistaking it for a recently dead body. Fortunately, the plant only blooms for about 3 days, with the smell, for anyone curious, being most pungent in the morning. The plant sort of has morning breath, meaning that despite doing everything in its power to be as off-putting as possible to everything but its preferred pollinators, botanical gardens around the world often make this a star attraction, because it doesn't smell when it's not flowering, and it allows them to do something no other business on earth could really get away with: brag about and advertise the fact that their business is going to smell like a rotting corpse for 3 days and charge people a premium for coming in and giving the air a big old sniff. Number 8, the strangler fig. Found primarily in tropical rainforests, strangler figs employ a peculiar and somewhat sinister strategy to establish themselves as the top plant dog to thrive in their native environment. The strangler fig begins its life as a small, sticky seed that will attempt to attach itself to a bird or other foraging mammal once freed from its figgy prison. The end goal being to eventually latch on to another tree whilst the animal goes about its business, or in some cases does its business, because sometimes seeds travel through Boop. As the strangler fig grows, it sends roots downwards to the forest floor, and over time these roots thicken and intertwine, gradually surrounding and enveloping the host tree, forming a sort of biological wooden prison that slowly but surely kills the tree. The name strangler fig comes from the fact the plant's roots will cut off the host's access to water and nutrients, whilst the leaves will cover the tree's own, preventing it from gaining any sustenance from the sun. Unlike with strangling a human or something like that, this process can take several years as the tree desperately fights to escape the confines of the fig's grasp. Trees that don't ultimately die and wither away, leaving behind a bizarrely and oddly beautiful lattice-like structure that is able to stand freely. Despite the decidedly, let's be honest, dickish way the fig propagates, it is considered to be a keystone species, that its fruit provides food for animals, whilst its unique structure very often serves as a stylish shelter for aesthetically minded birds, bats, and other small, fuzzy creatures. Number 7. The Venus flytrap. This is probably the most famous and notorious carnivorous plant on this list, and it's been a staple of pop culture and lists talking about weird-ass cool plants for decades now, so let's do our part and talk about the Venus flytrap. Hailing from the wetlands of the Carolinas in the United States, the plant has an ingenious and iconic trapping mechanism. Its leaves, modified into hinge lobes, have trigger hairs that, when stimulated even slightly by an insect or something like that, initiate a rapid and jaw-like closure of the lobes. This swift action confines the prey within, marking the beginning of a unique and rather horrifying feeding process. Upon capturing an insect, the Venus flytrap secretes numerous digestive enzymes to break down the prey's soft tissues, extracting essential nutrients. The digestion process spans anywhere between 5 and 12 days, after which the lobes open, revealing the indigestible remnants of prey, such as exoskeletons and the like. This carnivorous adaptation has evolved as a response to the nutrient-poor soils of its natural habitat, allowing the Venus flytrap to essentially supplement its diets with random insects stupid enough to literally crawl inside its gaping maw. Notably one of the more popular carnivorous plants, it's entirely possible to grow your own Venus flytrap at home, though the numerous guides we consulted do not recommend them for beginner gardeners. Not because they're difficult to look after, they're actually remarkably hardy plants and they're well adapted for the environment in which they live, but because people assume carnivorous means that they can feed them hamburgers. And this isn't a joke or me engaging in my trademark hyperbole. I consulted numerous guides on how to grow and care for a Venus flytrap, and every single one clarifies: do not feed your Venus flytrap human food. Do not feed it meat, do not feed it chicken, do not feed it French fries or tortilla chips. If anything, the guides say not to feed them at all, because if a Venus flytrap is kept in suitable conditions, it will essentially just need some water and it will gather its nutrients from the sun and from the soil it's stored in. As mentioned, its adaptation of eating insects is only used as a last resort, so if a Venus flytrap that you have in your house is eating insects, that means it's not being cared for properly, so maybe you should look after it properly. Also, who's out there feeding hamburgers to a Venus flytrap? They grow like this big. So dumb. Number 6, the stinking corpse lily. Celebrated as the world's largest flower, Rafflesia arnoldi, or more simply and probably more accurately, the death flower or death lily, is renowned not for its size but it's for peculiar growth, reproductive strategy, and the fact it smells like a rotting corpse, which sounds familiar. Unlike typical plants, the death flower lacks any leaves, stems, and roots for most of its life cycle, existing primarily as a parasitic organism within the tetrastigma vine. The most distinctive feature of the death lily is, as mentioned, its colossal flower, which can reach diameters of up to 3 feet, almost 1 meter. What makes this botanical giant even more intriguing is, as mentioned, its malodorous scent, often likened to that of rotting flesh or day-old Papa John's. Like the aforementioned corpse flower, this is primarily to attract flies and other insects that do their business on dead bodies like the little freaks that they are. Also, it grows in roughly the same area, being endemic to the forests of Sumatra and also sometimes Borneo. In fact, during some research, I found numerous tours that will take you to visit both the corpse flower and death lily on the same day, in between scoping out some orangutans and gibbons. Amusingly, at least one tour I found didn't comment on the infamously pungent odour each plant gives off, simply noting that guests who decide to take the tour will, and I quote, remember the smell forever. Yeah, I bet. Number 5, living stones. Named for their remarkable and effective camouflage that mimics the appearance of pebbles or stones, these African plants have evolved to survive in environments with scarce water resources and very intense sunlight, i.e. the desert. What sets living stones, also known as lithops, apart from other succulents is their leaf anatomy. The plant consists of two fleshy leaf-like structures fused together, forming a sort of cleft at the top. Think of that sort of structure. As the plant matures, the outer surface of the lithops often feature patterns and colours and textures resembling the surrounding rocks, stones and pebbles, providing very effective camouflage against potential herbivores and harsh sunlight. It's also why they're commonly known as mentioned, either living stones or, more adorably, pebble plants. Notably popular with home gardeners, pebble plants are almost comically simple to look after because once they're settled in the correct soil and conditions, they literally almost never need watering. In fact, if kept in the right conditions, the plants can get all the moisture they need from the surrounding air, as they're simply that well adapted to not having any water in their native environment, making them essentially just a big pot of rocks. Cool, huh? Number 4. The sensitive plant. The sensitive plant is native to Central and South America, but is now found in various parts of the world and has gotten attention for its ability to exhibit rapid leaf movements when subjected to physical touch, something that has led to numerous very apt and very funny alternate names and monikers such as the touch-me-not, the humble plant, and more simply, the shame plant. Finally a plant for us millennials. The plant's leaves are made up of smaller leaflets arranged around the stem. When touched or disturbed in any way, the leaflets fold inwards and droop. We've all been there. A response that is believed to be a defense mechanism against herbivores trying to graze upon it. This striking reaction is a result of rapid water loss from specialized cells located at the base of each leaflet. The folding of the leaves is reversible and can happen within seconds, making a captivating spectacle for observers and a popular houseplant or educational tool. Though it should be noted that repeatedly dicking around with the plant will negatively impact its growth, so if you'd like an example of this plant to remain erect and turgid for as long as possible, only touch it sparingly. Good advice for life right there. Number 3, the sheep-eating plant. Remember when I talked about how people keep trying to feed Venus flytraps hamburgers and stuff and how stupid that was because plants can't eat meat? Yeah, let's talk about a plant that eats sheep. Allegedly. Known as Puja chilensis, this thorny shrub-like plant is related to the pineapple and endemic to Chile, specifically the lonely arid slopes of the Andes, though it is somehow also able to flower and grow in the UK. Thanks global warming. And it's known for its supposed ability to hunt and kill sheep, a creature you'll notice has the ability to just, move, which you think would be an advantage to a plant, but alas, no. To explain, the thick serrated leaves of the plant are known to frequently trap and ensnare sheep and other animals who, if unable to escape in time, will die and decay at the plant's base, essentially serving as fertilizer for its growth. Whether the plant does this intentionally or it's simply a happy accident, at least for the plant, is unclear, but examples of it happening have been reported upon enough for the plant to earn the aforementioned nickname of the sheep-killing plant either way. Number 2, the dragon's blood tree. The dragon's blood tree, or Dracænia cinnabari, is a distinctive and iconic plant native to the Socotra archipelago in the Indian Ocean. I hope I pronounced all of those words correctly because that was a lot of things I'm not familiar with. Renowned for its unusual shape and striking umbrella-like appearance, this unique tree has become a symbol of the otherworldly flora found on the remote Socotra island. Characterized by a dense, inverted umbrella-shaped crown of long, spiky leaves, the dragon's blood tree derives its name from the red sap it produces, often likened to the mythical blood of dragons, and is seen as being equally as valuable, oft being a prized commodity of ancient travellers and peoples. Much like the ancient dragons of myth and legend, many vaguely mystical, magical and powerful medicinal properties are ascribed to almost every part of the tree. Resin derived from its roots can be used to cleanse and tighten skin. The sap it exudes, along with being used as a dye, can also freshen breath. The roots themselves can be boiled into a tea that soothes chronic pain, and the leaves are supposedly an excellent natural remedy for gas. They also just look really, really cool. Speaking of which, number 1, the water wheel plant. The water wheel plant is mainly known for its unique trap structure and ability to do something not commonly observed in plants and stuff. moving around, found in nutrient-poor freshwater environments across the world, including, of all places, the Chernobyl exclusion zone, where 75% of the known population of this thing exists. This floating aquatic plant has evolved specialised mechanisms for capturing and digesting a manner of aquatic invertebrates. The water-wheel plant comprises a series of whorls, each consisting of small snap-trap leaves arranged around a central stem. These modified leaves are equipped with sensitive trigger hairs and trap insects by rapidly closing when triggered, so this snapping mechanism resembles a tiny underwater version of the Venus flytrap, and once closed, the trap forms a essentially watertight seal, and enzymes then secreted to digest the captured prey, allowing the plant to absorb essential nutrients as the prey literally melts into the water. Or, to put it another, much more horrifying way, somewhere out there is a plant that traps and kills living creatures using expansive tendril-like appendages that drag unsuspecting animals and insects below the surface of the water, where they're simultaneously melted and drowned, and it near exclusively grows in an irradiated wasteland nobody is allowed to visit. Yeah, that's going to be an enemy in the next Fallout game. I can feel it. And I would be remiss if I didn't do a bonus fact here about one of my favourite, just weird, deadly plants, and that is the Gimpy Gimpy tree, which doesn't sound threatening, but it's noted as being one of the most just dangerous plants to exist because it has a toxin that has been likened to the most painful thing a person can experience, and people who've been stung by this tree have likened the pain to being electrocuted and covered in acid at the same time. And the reason it's so dangerous is because each of the leaves of the tree, I think it's technically a shrub, but they call it a tree because it's a shrub that grows quite tall. It's coated in these fine silica hairs that are likened to basically organic hypodermic syringes, and they contain a very potent toxin that can remain active and still able to sting for centuries. And there are people who've been stung by just dried out examples of the leaf of the Gimpy Gimpy tree, and they gently brush across it, and these tiny silica hairs snap off under the surface of the skin, release their toxin, and the pain can last for years. And there are numerous stories of people who've been stung by this thing, and they're not very good. For example, there are people who've had to be strapped down to hospital beds lest they tear off their own flesh, trying to scratch at the pain, which, as mentioned, never goes away and can last for years. There's one guy who was supposedly found in the Australian outback, because of course this thing grows in Australia, just with a bullet through his head. They wondered why this guy had just randomly decided to shoot himself in the head. They found a bunch of Gimpy Gimpy leaves in his hand and his trousers by his ankles. You can probably do the rest of the math in your head there. There's also stories of horses that have been driven mad by the delirium and just ran off of cliffs because, they want to end the pain. Yeah, so that's that thing sucks, and I talked about it on my channel, Fact Fiend with Karl Smallwood, a link to which you can find below. And if you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment with feedback and suggestions, and, subscribe for more content like this. I've been your host, as mentioned, Karl Smallwood, and I hope to see you all next time. Cheers!